Hello, Kevin Bacon here again. All right, I got a question from one of my viewers that requires basically a video to explain it. He asked me how to make this cut in a 5-inch piece of pipe. Okay. Perhaps one of the most difficult things about working with round stock, and why I've gone mostly to square stock, is exactly what he asked. Not to mention that when you're welding out here, it wants to burn holes because it's thin on the edge and all kinds of things like that. But round stock, cutting a straight line at a 45-degree angle. And what I'm going to do is give you a basic principle to follow. Doesn't make any difference what the diameter of the pipe is. Whether it's 1.5 or 400 inches. It's all going to work the same. He has a square. So, let me get my square. Okay, I'm going to use a simple square here. Now, this one has a caliper for adjustments. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use it as a square, because this is what I've got here on my desk. The very first thing we need to determine is the outside diameter of the pipe. So if you find the outside diameter of the pipe, just lay your square on there or just measure across the top. You've got to be pretty accurate about the measurement. In this case, we've got metric facing me, and he didn't say, he said 5-inch pipe. So 7 inches at one end goes back to 3 3/4 at the other end. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 3¼ inches outside diameter at the top of this pipe. 3¼ inches. Okay, now if you know the basic formula for a right triangle, and that's what we want to make, the two legs at the 90-degree are the same length. So, if you have a 2.5-inch leg on one side, you have a 2.5-inch leg on the other side, and the line that connects the two will be a perfect 45-degree angle. Very simple then. We have 3¼ inches. We're going to measure along 3¼ inches and make a line. Now this pipe has a dip in it. So we're going to make a mark on here at 3¼ inches. So let me get a marker and we'll do that. Okay, I measured 3¼ inches to that line right there, and that will be from this corner over here. Now you can start anywhere on the pipe you want, doesn't make any difference. That's the key. Now, if you're going to start somewhere else and you don't have a square to start out with, then lay your pipe on the table, down like so, and your square on the table, so it sticks up like so, and mark the pipe from top to bottom along the square. You may have to rotate the pipe around to get it where you want it, but get a good mark. Now that you have a top mark, and this corner down here was the bottom mark, now we have to join those marks together. So, give me just a second, we'll do that. Alright, using a piece of masking tape or some other flexible tape, I use strapping tape here. We want to join the mark at the top of the tube with the mark at the bottom of the tube, which is going to be down here. Continue around and go back up and mark it at the top with the piece of tape. Okay? Then take your marker and follow the tape. There we have it, black mark. Now reverse the process on the other side of the pipe. Okay, now that you've got your line, I want you to check the line carefully to see that you don't have a point here. It comes across almost straight at the top line and makes a very light curve, and then follows around, get back over here, there we go, and does the same thing at the bottom. When it gets to the bottom down here, it makes a curve around that's not near as pointy as you might think it is. And if you cut along that line, you should have a 45-degree cut. Now, to check your work, if you take your square and you lay it up along this line, everything is backwards in the camera, and sight along it, you should be able to tell that that line, even though it curves away from you, is straight. If it's not, you may have to make some minor modifications to it. If you look closely, you'll see that my line isn't absolutely perfect. But remember, the kerf of that blade is 1/8 of an inch or something. So you're going to lose some steel. And after you get ready to put these two together, you can adjust it by grinding a little off here or there until you get happily where you want to be. The better the fit, the easier it will be to weld. The more gap, the more difficult, especially when you're working with thin materials like this, where the weld rod is so close to the diameter of what you're welding. I hope that helped. I personally have a freestanding bandsaw that I cut mine with, or I also have a big chop saw with a 14.5 or 15-inch disc that I can pull down and cut them. Years ago, my brother gave me a handheld bandsaw. Works phenomenally well. Also, if you're working with pipe that's 4 inches or smaller. That's why I went to using almost exclusively square pipe, because the square is so much easier to cut and weld for me than the round stuff. After you get done, you've got to work this out where you figure out how you can jig it together and hold it so that everything matches just right, and tack it in a couple places before you make your final weld around it. Now, this was welded with flux core rod, and or flux core wire, and you can see these little speckles all over the place where it pops and throws sparks and spatter, and that spatter sticks to everything. So I am more inclined now to use 16th inch rod on my stick welder, 6013, which is a lower temperature, easy flowing rod, and it gives me a nice weld, and I'm not so likely to blow through it and out the other side. Hope that helps you, Rick. This one's for you, Kevin Bacon. Bye.